everyone, I'm Katie Brown and I am in the Labor Studies program here at UMass Lowell, and today I will be interviewing Laura Lamar Anderson with Lowell Public Schools.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You teach in Lowell.
I do.
What grades do you teach?
I'm currently a fourth grade teacher.
Okay. Have you always been?
No, I've done kindergarten. I've worked in English language learner newcomer classrooms, and I've also taught second grade.
Cool. So how long have you been teaching?
It's a difficult question because I was kind of in and out. So, but all told, just about 10 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. What made you kind of want to pursue that and become a teacher in the first place?
I think, well, also a long and complicated story, but the short version is I had gone to school thinking that I wanted to be an English teacher at the high school level. While at UMass Lowell at the time, I was introduced to American Studies and museum work, and so I shifted my focus, and I worked in museums for the first half of my career. When my children were born, museums are not a very well paying field for the most part, museum education, so it was economical for me to stay at home with them for a while. But I missed, like, what I loved most about museums were the field trips and the workshops and the working with students of all ages. So I thought I really wanted to do that more. So while my kids were young, I started taking classes and doing tutoring and that sort of thing in public schools, and decided it definitely was where I wanted to be. So that's how I ended up in the classroom.
And did you do those classes at UMass Lowell or somewhere else?
At Fitchburg State.
Oh, okay. Cool. So kind of take me through what a normal school day looks like for you.
Okay. Well, we're all in the hallways at the beginning to greet the students as they're coming in, so we make sure that we're there, the classrooms are ready for them. We're lucky in Lowell, all students get a free breakfast, so they grab their breakfast in the morning, come on in, and it makes a nice, easy start to the day for them, so they can chitter-chatter a little bit and have some breakfast, and we can kind of ease everybody in. Gives the teachers an opportunity, too, to kind of scope out the room, see who's having a tough day, who's ready to go, who looks a little sick, maybe, or, and kind of gauge the day. And then we jump on in. Our school has morning announcements, so there's things like the Pledge of Allegiance and birthday announcements and things that are going on for the day, any changes in schedule that we need to be reminded about. And we get going, morning meeting, again, a nice check-in time. In my fourth grade, we switch for some classrooms, so once our morning meeting is completed, my kids go over to another teacher for mathematics, and I take her students for English language arts. We have specials time for the kids later. They have lunch and recess, then lunch, and we do the whole thing again in the afternoon. We're a STEM academy at the Rogers School, so we have a guaranteed block of time for science, which not every other elementary school has, but we definitely have that guaranteed block at the end of the day for our grade. And that's the day in a nutshell.
Interesting. So not all schools teach science, or is it just not?
No, they all teach science,
Okay.
but we have a guaranteed daily block,
Gotcha.
whereas some others are doing it a couple days a week or doing a week of science and then not, however that they fit it in. But every school teaches science.
Okay, cool. What union are you a member of?
The Lowell Teachers Union,
Okay.
for the local.
And so what are some examples of issues that your union has kind of focused on in the past?
Well, like any union, the first order of business is to take care of the workers, and so to make sure that there are adequate pay raises to keep up with the cost of living, that we have safe and professional working environments, and that when overtime is asked for, that you're compensated for that. So at the moment, our union is working with another local organization, the Lowell Education Justice Alliance, to try to get a unified recess policy throughout the school district. So the union is backing that local organization in trying to push with the school committee to make a guaranteed recess policy across the district, which, professionally we think is an important part of an elementary student's school day.
Right. Do not all schools have that recess block, or
We have
again, does it
it's
kind
ju-
of
it's just not it's not a set district policy as to how long. So some schools, because of the demands of curriculum, because of the state demands for the amount of time on task, schools have had to make a lot of difficult choices. And the union recognizes that teachers need to be more involved in how those choices are made. So some schools were kind of clipping off recess at one end or the other in the hopes of trying to support their students in the academics that they need. They're all difficult decisions, and then other schools are keeping longer recess time. So we just felt like Lowell Education Justice Alliance felt like it shouldn't depend on what school you happen to be assigned on whether or not you have a 12-minute recess or a 20-minute recess.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what, in your opinion, do you think is the most important issue kind of on your union's plate right now? Would you say it was the recess, or?
Well, it's hard to narrow it down to one because I think funding is such a big issue right now across the state. The state legislature is looking at the way that we fund our public schools through the foundation budget. And because of an outdated funding system at the state level, districts like Lowell are kind of having to cobble together a lot of money locally that we feel should be kind of supported by the state. So our union is definitely supporting issues at the state level to try to make a more equitable funding situation for all public schools. So whether you're from Westford or Tewksbury or Lowell, your school is funded to give the students and the teachers the resources we need every day. I think that's probably the biggest issue that we're working with.
Mm-hmm. Do charter schools play into that at all? I know that's kind of like a hot ticket item right now.
Absolutely, because so the issue is because of the way schools are funded. When a charter school opens up, it can funnel money away from the public school without taking away any of our responsibilities. So the reason we needed that funding still is there, even though a couple of kids have maybe moved over to a charter school. So if we're going to continue to support charter schools at the state level, which some of the state want to do, they have to change the way they're funded so that public schools are not shortchanged.
What is your relationship between the union that you're in and kind of the school administration or the school district, just kind of like the greater school?
So I'm, a rank and file member. I don't hold any office within the union itself, but our buildings all have building representatives so that they're kind of our liaison between ourselves and the union and the administration. Every building has, I forget how many building reps, but there's a handful to represent all the different facets of the union. So the paraprofessionals and the teachers each have representation at the school level. And then, so they meet much more regularly with the union and bring up any information that we need. We started this year having kind of like mini building meetings with those reps. So once the building reps get some information, they can bring it to us at kind of a before or after school meeting. And then if there's any issue that we're having that we need union involvement with, our reps are the first people to go to. So if there's any issue at the administration level, not getting compensated for time you've been asked to put in, or a problem with the way your days off are allocated or anything like that, the building representative is there to help support and solve any issues.
Okay, so it's kind of like a tier where you kind of go to one person and they bring it to the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can always go directly to the union office if that's what you feel you need to do, but it's so much easier. You have these people that you know at your building and that who know what your building is like. Mm-hmm. So it's great. You have immediate access.
Mm-hmm. How crucial would you say that having a union is specifically to public school systems?
In a lot of ways, teachers' unions are a little bit different than some others. Maybe not different. So we need our union in the public schools to look out for the benefits of teachers. It can be difficult when you're relying on tax income and that sort of thing. It puts you in a difficult situation with the public. We know it costs a lot of money to run schools, and you want to make that, you want to help the public understand that it's not like a waste of money, like here's where the money is going, and I think the union can help do that. So kind of be that public face for us in some ways, say, it's not just 6 hours a day and summers off kind of thing. Here's all of the work that goes into it, and this is why the schools need funding. And so the union really helps kind of lay that case out to people. So there's that basic, looking out for the workers and making sure that the school buildings are getting what they need. But in a teachers union, like a lot of professional unions, there's also a matter of keeping a professional standard, So the union has a lot of outlets and ways that they make sure that folks can stay up with the most current research. The unions are looking towards that and publishing and connecting us with resources to help individual teachers stay up with the current research and how best to teach. And holding each other sort of accountable and helping support each other and reach those professional standards. So a union like the teachers union is so wide, has so many different responsibilities for us as union members, not just in protecting wages and retirement benefits, but also in helping make sure that we're supported in becoming the best at our profession as we possibly can, and giving those resources, making sure we have time and the focus to be able to keep up with those professional standards.
It also seems kind of even more complicated because not only are they looking out for the teachers who are, facilitating everything, but also it all boils down to the kids,
right,
and what's best for them. So
right. So then they really have to pay close attention to the conditions in the school building, and are we making these good decisions about scheduling? For instance, making a more uniform recess policy. Are students being funneled to the right places, and trying to keep an ear out to parent and family concerns as well. And teachers are the conduit for all of that as well.
How do you think that public schools specifically, maybe even in Lowell, would change if, you didn't have the union that you're in?
That would be interesting because our union is so very active in keeping the standard of public education high in our district. So our district, like any urban district, has a lot of concerns. There's high poverty, there's a lot of English language learners, we have a large number of students who are in need of special education services, and having a strong union advocating for teacher professionalism and time to maintain professionalism and all of that, then we can better serve our students. Without that, if you don't have someone who understands what it takes to be in that building for 6.5 hours and work with the 20 or so students in front of you, which the union reps know what that takes, then you lose that. And so people say, oh, well, you can do without this money. Do we really need that person? You need somebody, you need a professional organization that can explain, this is why we need this kind of technology. This is why we need these sorts of staff people that, might seem superfluous if you're not in the day-to-day, if you don't understand the reasoning behind it, the education research that says this is the best thing for kids.
You've been teaching for about 10 years at this point. Have you seen a large change or shift that's been notable in your time in Lowell Public Schools?
Over the past few years, there's been sort of a struggle among teachers to maintain our kind of positivity, and that's, you get when at the government level, people are just constantly arguing over funding and the right way to do things, and not really paying attention to the people in the trenches. You feel devalued, and that makes the day-to-day struggle a little bit more. Because being a teacher is hard work, and when you're also, not being valued for that hard work, it's a bit demoralizing. And so I've actually seen a couple teachers leaving, good teachers leaving, and it's not for better paying jobs, although they might have gotten better paying jobs. It's really for a de-stress level. It's for, if I'm going to work this hard, I want somebody to appreciate me,
Right. Yeah, we talk about that in class a lot, just feeling valued for the work that you're doing.
Right.
Especially when it's such a high stake, like being a teacher.
Yeah, and I'm a parent too. I get where the parents are coming from, and there's a lot that we expect from our teachers. And as a parent, I expect a lot from my children's teachers, so I know that. And we're not saying we don't want to be held accountable, because I think most of the teachers I talk to, like, yes, there are standards we want to live up to. We know how important our job is, but we want to be trusted to do our job rather than told top down from people who maybe have never been teachers, and kind of guessing what we should be doing instead of allowing us to do it.
Kind of where do you hope to see, like what direction do you hope to see your school specifically go in the next, I don't know, 5 years?
Well, I'm at a somewhat unique school within the district because we are a STEM academy and we were kind of started that way. And that's great because it's looking at all of the latest research on going kind of back in time more to thematic units and integrating the day. And I think what we're learning there and what we learn from the really interesting programs that a lot of schools in the district are doing, I would like to see us better share all that learning, because there's some really great programs happening throughout our district. Teachers, if they've got the flexibility and the time, they're trying things out and they're failing and learning from that and trying it again. And that's the kind of work that I think we should always be doing at schools. And we have, I have some flexibility to do that. We've tried a few things, we've failed a few times, and we've made some improvements. This is my second year with this fourth grade team, and it's been great, so teamwork, because we have the time and because we make the time to work as a team. Like a lot of teachers through the district do, they make their time to work with their teams and try these things out. I would like to see that more institutionalized in the district, that team time to figure out, how are we going to make this more interesting? How are we going to get the kids deeper into the subject? How can we integrate this science with this writing and with this reading, and really coordinate our day? That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what you said about being trusted to do your job in the way that you and your colleagues kind of see fit to benefit the students.
Yeah, and I think we get a lot of trust in our district with our current superintendent and various principals throughout the district. But when mandates keep coming from the federal level or the state level, it makes it harder for us to have that flexibility.
Yeah, so that creativity and flexibility, that's something really cool, and I don't think something that a lot of people think about when they think about teachers. Other than that, what are some of your favorite parts of your job? I meet a new bunch of really interesting, quirky people every year. So not just the kids themselves, but you get to know their families and you get younger siblings and such. So you meet a lot of interesting people. The kids are a challenge every year. So when you say, yes, I teach fourth grade, and if you've taught fourth grade for, say, 20 years, you've taught a different thing every single one of those 20 years because it's a different group of students, not just the mandates or the new curriculum ideas or new trip opportunities or anything, but it's different students. So I like that, even though I might be covering some of the same content, I do it a different way all the time. Even right now when I have a group of kids in the morning and a group of kids in the afternoon, so we're doing very similar things, but it's so very different what I do with those morning kids because they're one set of personalities and one set of way of working with each other. And then when I have the afternoon group, it's such a different group. So you're always on your toes, and I love that about my job. What would you say some are the biggest challenges?
I think, having the right resources at the right time. So right now we're trying to build up our technology supply, and it's one of the pushes of our principal, so he's very good at kind of trying to push and get what we need. And I think the technology department at the district is really cognizant of the fact that a STEM academy needs a good bit of technology and a variety there. But keeping, having it when you need it and having it working when you need it, even with such, one of the greatest changes I've seen in the district is that our technology support has just been improving and improving every single year. So it's definitely easier, but those resources aren't always readily there and immediately working for us.
So that's also kind of where your union can come in with the funding that we discussed.
Absolutely. And so as district mandates come down, as state mandates come down, there are now technology standards for students. So we have to, if we're being asked to teach these things and to uphold these standards, then the union is one way to push. We need the resources, the training, the hardware, the software, everything.
Is there anything that you want to say?
Just that, we're at a tough time nationally in thinking of unions as a negative force. So my dad was a bricklayer, so he was part of the union, and those are the kind of union jobs I think people more readily think about when you're thinking union. It's the laborers kind of union, and that was really important. His union worked for job site safety and to make sure folks were paid and that there was some health benefits, and when he was working in that union, there wasn't enough at that time, and he ended up working at the state with the Department of Labor and Industries to try to push for more and to kind of regulate job sites for safety and such. And so I've never had to worry about job site safety. I work in a public school building. It's a pretty safe building. Fortunately, in Massachusetts, we've had very safe schools. But, that's one of the things that's so important for unions in this, especially right now in this climate of deregulation. So we're taking away safety regulations in pursuit of easier profits on the part of corporations. And thinking of, what my dad's work had been done in the past and how many, even with regulations in place, how many job site accidents he had to investigate and that kind of thing. So it's worrisome. And we have to remember that, supporting unions as a country isn't just about getting people a higher wage. It's really about all these other things like safety. So all these things that keep us able to do our jobs.
Right. And you said before too, kind of people higher up, maybe, in Washington who have never been in the teaching position before, who can pass these regulations and take things away when they don't necessarily know what it takes. So what is kind of one thing that you would say to them if you had the chance?
I think we should put a person in charge of the federal education department who has spent time in public schools, who listens to public schools. That business model can't solve everything. That public schools are not corporations. We're not making money. There's no profit involved, so you can't use a business model to organize and to think about regulations in this way. It doesn't work. You have to think about them as educational institutions.
So you said that, people can sometimes look at teaching as 6 hours a day, summers off, flexible work hours. What kind of would you say in response to that?
I've never met a teacher who does all of her work during the school day. It's kind of impossible to do it that way. So we don't work 6-hour days. All of us are there early for meetings, to prep classrooms, to prep lessons, to meet with parents, to make phone calls, to do paperwork. We're on April break this week, and I've already spent a few hours grading projects that my students did because I wanted a nice block of time to do that thoughtfully. And then I'll spend more hours preparing lessons and activities for the next few weeks. We all also, we need to keep up with current practices. So there's a state mandate that we recertify our licenses every few years. So we're all constantly taking professional development courses, workshops, reading books, not just because we're required to recertify, but because that's our profession. We want to be up and with the latest information, well-rounded in our approaches, so that we're also always doing this outside work to make ourselves better teachers, gathering in learning communities, online, face-to-face. I mean, there's so many options, so much work to do. Whenever not a teacher, whenever you ask the spouse of a teacher, like, what do you do on vacation? Oh, we collect things for her classroom. And we, so you're just like, it's a 24/7. Because I think, it's true that for a lot of people, teaching is a calling. So it is a little bit more than a job. And for that reason, we're sometimes willing to, put in all these extra hours that we're not compensated for, because it's what we love to do. But there is, it does take away from other things that you want to do, and you should talk to a couple of family members of teachers sometimes. There's a lot of complaints.
Right, and there's kind of also, I feel like, a fine line when, you become a teacher because it's your calling and because you want to, give back to the community, but also, like you said, you want to be compensated for the work that you do, and you want to have the appropriate funding so that you can do that job to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I think it's a struggle in people in all these sorts of professions where it's seen as like almost on level with volunteer work. You're doing something in it. But if you are expected to do it day to day and do it well, you need to be able to put food on the table and pay your rent.
And you would think, too, that people would want their children to be facilitated by the best possible resources that we have to offer.
And it's funny, I think, in general, when you're talking about schools in general or teachers in general, people are more likely to disparage folks. But when you're talking about their child's teacher, I think it's a different relationship. So people are usually satisfied with their individual schools, with their individual teachers. But then when you start kind of thinking in the abstract of public schools in general, somehow the opinion drops a little bit, and it's odd. You have to remember, most of the parents I know love their children's school, no matter where that is, but they're quick to give a like on Facebook when someone's saying, "Oh, there's a teacher with a snow day off again."
I think it's easy too when you said looking at your child's individual teacher, individual school district, that may be fine in the grand scheme of things,
right.
But kind of when you look outside at the greater, wider view of public schools in general, there may be schools that don't have as much, funding, responsible funding, etc. And so I think kind of solving that as a whole would really kind of be better for the world in general.
Absolutely, and every single school has room for improvement. I love where I work right now. There's a lot I would like to make better, but step by step.
Yeah, hopefully we can get there. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for watching.